introduce Brett to you. Everyone knows Brett. Brett was pretty smart this year. He trained us all up really well, and then had some other activities. So he missed some of the good stuff, but he had a lot of confidence in those he left behind, and we delivered the job.
Yeah, thanks, David. Thank you very much. I enjoy this time of year, just the winter time itself, and certainly our conference. We're a little bit late with the conference this year. At this time of the session, I normally speak about the post-season stuff, so we review the fire season. My memory's so bad this year that I really can't remember it because we're now into June. And that's we'll blame that on the Honourable Tony Abbott, because David has harassed their office, or in fact Jen has harassed their office in order to get Mr Abbott to come be our after-dinner speaker. So we had to fit him with a date where he was freely available. So that's why we're so late. So I'm going to try and refresh your memories about how the summer was and the lead up to the summer, how it occurred, what actually happened, and my little theme, I suppose, is preparation equals success. In order to do the things that we do and to do them properly and have less impact on the community, what we need is to be prepared. And it's not just about our preparation from, the Canobolas Zone Fire Control Centre point of view. It's also the preparation of brigades and the activities that you do prior to the season and the readiness levels that you have during the season. It's all about the training, the readiness of the equipment, the readiness of the brigade personnel being G'd up, able to perform, ready to perform. That's what makes us successful in protecting the communities that we protect. Mayor Gosper said earlier, and Ian's been a deputy captain in the Boomie Brigade for as long as I've been, a fire control staff member in this district. He said that their brigade had a very busy year, and particularly during that February period. And Ian said that there was very little rain. I can't remember any rain in February at all across our district. So there was probably some down around David's location down at Barry Hobbies, because that's like God's country, and it rains there when it doesn't rain anywhere else. But nonetheless, it was very, very dry. So we've actually spent a great deal of time and effort in the last couple of years to try and make sure, as David said there before, about just trying to train everybody, I suppose. It's not about training people. It's about succession planning. It's about people we're all getting older, and we are collectively all getting older. And I know that there's a lot of people, I was talking to Ian Atkinson from Cumnock earlier, there's a lot of people that are really trying to engage now with their communities to try and get the younger people to come along, to get additional hands on deck, because all of our communities are getting older. It's no different in our office, we're all getting older. I've been here for 22 years, I know David's been in the job for 28 or so. We've got Steve Smith, who's been with us for the best part of 20 years. All of us are getting on, and we've got to make sure that we build a culture and replicate what we're doing now into the future. So I thought what we'd do is we'd start by, I want to play a little, Ash, if you can just go to this bit, don't play that video yet, but just a Surviving fire. So without doubt, the largest fire in New South Wales this past summer. Happened on the catastrophic weekend, actually started on the Saturday afternoon, certainly took a big run on the Sunday. So this is a fire that started around Leadville, started on Surviving Doherty Lane. I didn't know that until I was driving up to Coolar to do a private job there one day a few weeks after the fire, and as I was driving through Leadville, I seen the road sign that said Surviving Doherty Lane. And I thought, that's where the name comes from. So I don't know how many people might have seen this video we're about to play, but it's a video that's just straight off YouTube. It's really about the weather, the conditions that actually were around that particular weekend, and then how that fire took off, done what it did, and caused the havoc that it caused. So I'll just play a little bit of video. No aspersions at all on the Royal Fire Service management of this particular fire. It was a bad day. They just were pretty unlucky. So it takes 8 minutes to video, so sit back and enjoy that. Thanks, Ash. Hopefully it'll play.
Greetings. As a follow-on to the previous video, this one takes a look at some of the views from space of a huge bushfire in New South Wales on 12th of February. By early on 13th of February, a total of 32 homes and 76 outbuildings had been destroyed in fires, 23 of those consumed by a massive fire which was named the Sir Ivan Fire near Dunedoo, which had burned through 54,700 hectares by today, the 15th of February. It had a fire edge of 200 kilometres long on the 12th and a plume that exploded 14 kilometres high into the atmosphere. This excellent picture by Alex Ellinghausen shows the Sir Ivan Fire on 12th of February. Bear in mind that this plume at this time is likely over 10 kilometres high, so well higher than Mount Everest. The sooty grey smoke can be seen down low, but at a certain altitude.
Righto, so I hope everyone's still awake. That particular portion of country is not too different from our own. Certainly probably a little bit different to the tablelands country that we have around, Orange and the eastern part of Cabon, but certainly the rest of Cabon and all of Cowra, very typical of the type of country it had. That was on the 12th of February. The fire started on the 11th, took a run on the 12th. The very same day we had the fire at Avondale. So without good preparation, we also can be subject to that sort of fire. We're in similar country, we had pretty much exactly the same weather. We would have had very similar fuel conditions, and for the grace of God, the fire that we had on that day was wrapped up quickly. So let's get to why I believe we wrapped up ours quickly. So thanks, Ash. I said we've been looking to try and make sure that we refresh our staff and we plan for the future. So the people up the top there, from left to right, we've got Roy Ferguson, retired. He's here tonight. Thanks for coming, Roy. Roy still does some fire investigation work for us in a volunteer capacity, but he took the option to retire and is enjoying the rest of his life now, doing the things that he wants to do. But he's gone from our midst. Arthur took a bit of a sabbatical, long service leave recently, and just in the last month or so has retired. And most of you would know Arthur, great stalwart of the Cowra district and later on Canobolas. His legacy to us is our fire trail network. Done an enormous job over many years trying to put in or ensure that we had good fire trails. Liz on the right hand side there has now moved on. She now works as the Learning and Development Officer at Chifley Zone, working from the Bathurst office of the Royal Fire Service. So she's taken a bit of a promotion and is doing a great job there. Smithy, looks like a mugshot there, doesn't it? Looks like you just come out of Long Bay. Steve, our Infrastructure and Assets Officer that most of you know and love, or not. He's on a bit of a sabbatical, just recovering from an injury that he had. So he's been off since August. So, just in those 4 staff that weren't here this fire season, and as member for Orangefield Donato pointed out a little while ago, just that cumulative experience and knowledge that walked out the door prior to our fire season, walked out our door, does leave a hole. And then we've got, from left to right, down the bottom, Lachlan Gilchrist, who's been our Assets and Infrastructure Officer now for the best part of 12 months. Got Lachlan Allen, who's assisting Nils in the Membership Services section. We've got Harold Rossiter there, who's basically come in from the mitigation crews to assist us. He's filling the hole that Steve made. And Jen Bucknell there on the right-hand side is doing a fabulous job in the zone administration role. But, with that experience that walks out, then we've got to fill that void somehow. So we actually spent every two afternoons a week, every week, we probably started around about September, where we would run workshops in our ops room with those 4 staff and the rest of the incumbent staff, the people that were already here. We would run workshops on fires and operational matters. So we would sit down, pretend there was something happen, and we would go through the process to make sure that we were doing it in rote fashion, if you like. So, you know, just from everything from where to get the basic forms to making the machine work, so that we were, as best as possible, supporting the brigades that were on the ground in the fashion that they've become used to. We want to make sure that the culture that we have developed in Canobolas over the last 15 years continues. And, you know, we're going to see over the next 5 or 6 years the loss of David, Niels, myself, and Smithy. So we're going to make sure that the expectation that our volunteers have for the support that they're provided by their Fire Control Centre continues on and on. We have, I believe, we've got a fabulous culture, and we want to make sure that continues. Thanks, Ash. So, just for our systems and cultures, it first started when, and some of you have been around for a while, first it really started, and David will touch on this later, back in the Goobang fire of 2000, 2001. And we started, we seconded Alex Green, we ended up with a hazard reduction plan that we called the landscape action plans, and tried to set a bit of a process for a regimented way of doing hazard reduction, making sure that we were managing our risks out in the community. We then started on with some Gumtree meetings to make sure we engage with our brigades in our communities. And then in the recent years, we've come up with this that some of you know and love, which is the Operational Response Code. So what it sets, and it's really this particular portion, the matrix at the bottom, which sets the game rules for how we respond to incidents. And it's all based on fire danger ratings of the day. Whoever thought that we would actually plan a response based on a fire danger rating? Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? Sounds like that's what you should do. Well, no one really does it. So we started doing it. And most of the districts in Region West now do exactly that. You know, they plan for a response based on a fire danger rating of a day. And so we've actually added to this year. This is our 2017 version. Not only have we set triggers or targets for how many trucks we put out the door for a particular fire danger day, we've also now set timeframes for when those trucks have got to be responded. So, you know, if it's a severe fire danger day, we're saying 12 trucks are going to that fire. We don't know what the fire is, we don't care what the fire is. 12 trucks are going to that fire, and we want those trucks responded within 5 minutes. So we're putting timeframes on it. Some people in our organisation are a bit wary of us putting timeframes on it, because if we don't do it within that time frame and we end up in a coronial court, as Brad pointed out earlier, then we may be held to account. We are happy to be accountable. That's what we get paid for, to be accountable. So that's our main system. We've also got, just on the bottom right hand side there, the strike team deployment that was added this year, and I'll talk about that more in a second. Thanks, Ash. So just in the past couple of months really, we've had our risk management plan. So the thing that really sets the benchmarks for how we manage all of our risks as a totality was renewed and approved by our head office just in the last month or two. It's been probably 5 years in the making, but it's been 3 years in the approval process, because our risk management plan differs from the standard template risk management plan that every other district has. So we've done something different, so that meant that it had to be reviewed, tested, checked, reviewed, checked, and away we go. We've now got the stage where, and this is just what we call the brigade risk allocation map. We actually call it the Joseph Scope map, which you can see all the brigade areas there. They're all got a different colour. The different colours mean different things. Obviously red is bad. So red, we say, is an extreme risk. And that's how we then treat the risks in those areas as extreme risks. So we put more effort into making sure that we're treating the risks in those particular brigade areas. And it's no surprise the black and white cross-hatched areas are the bushfire prone areas. So all up and down our western boundary, our boundary with our wonderful colleagues at Mid-Lachlan Valley team, is all, we believe, extreme risk or severe risk. So the Washpen, the Baldry, Bacobra brigades are all in that sort of area. Plus we've got the stuff up there in the north. So and also in the south down around from Wyangla right up through to Neville. It's all extreme risk. So we do different things and we plan for different activities to make sure that we manage those risks. Thanks, Ash. Very soon there's going to be a refreshing of the operational coordination plan at a state level. There are two plans that are required by legislation for every rural fire district, and that is the risk management plan, which I just spoke about, and the operations coordination plan. We have some influence in the process of the new Section 52 operations coordination plan. This is a part of it, which is the pre-incident plan. When you look at it, can you just go back 3 slides, Ash? Whoop. So that one, go back to where we were, Ash. Does it look similar? There you go. So what we're hoping is that with that influence that we've got at that state level, the work that we've already done and the record that we've proven does work, our operations response plan will actually dovetail nicely into the new template for the Section 52 operations plan. So there's a lot more to it than just that slide. There's a whole host of documentation that goes with it, number of maps, but what we want to see is something that's spatially represented. We don't want to see a big thick text document. We want to see actions and capabilities rather than words, and that gives us that. And again, it's all about responding to various things at the right time on those days that have the higher risk. And we've got everything in there. It doesn't matter whether it's the brigade availability, the type of response we have, the aircraft support we have, the heavy plant support we have, the communications personnel that we have available to our fire control centre. All those standby things and readiness things that we have are all in there. They're captured and they're numbered. So it doesn't matter if I'm on duty on that bad day, or it's David, or it's Steve, or if it's Lachlan, or if it's Jen. Doesn't matter whether they're experienced people or they're not experienced people. It's captured. And everyone does the same thing so that nothing's left to chance. So we've had that system now since 2013. We've developed it each year and it's proven itself time and time again. Thanks, Ash. So as a bit of an addition this year, the guys sat around on that 11th and 12th weekend. We had a preemptive Section 44 declaration, as Mayor Gosper said, and everything was prepared. The readiness level from the brigades was outstanding, and I'm sure you all know the messages that we sent out from probably Wednesday onwards. So the bad day was forecast to be on the Sunday. So from Wednesday, we started to send pager messages out. And because of our pager messages, you're also getting that on our BART system. So that's another development that we've had in the last 12 or 18 months. You know, the BART smartphone application, which turns your phone into a pager and gives you the ability to communicate with your brigade members by pushing a green or a red button to say that you can or can't go. And that's a fantastic innovation, and it was brought to us originally, not in that version, but by our very own members. And Ian Atkinson from Cumnock was the first one that saw a similar app, gave us the heads up on it, and we moved through the mire of technology until we came up with a system that would suit our needs. And, you know, and it suits, well, not our needs, suits your needs. People have been telling us for years, we don't want to carry pages anymore. I've got a phone, just text me. So this system is much better than text because it's a two-way street of information. So with the strike teams, David sat around because they'd organised everything. They'd rung every brigade captain, every deputy group captain, every group captain was contacted. All the councils were contacted. And the readiness level right across the brigades on that weekend was the highest that we've ever had. And as Mayor Gosper said earlier, people were out looking for smoke on that day. We had brigades actively patrolling districts. And so when the balloon did go up, and it did, we had a full start on the Saturday with the William Street fire here in Orange, the car yard that got torched. And that smoke caused a lot of concern for probably 40 or 50 kilometres around Orange. We had brigades out at Lewis Ponds, paged to a fire out the airway somewhere. It turned out to just be William Street. So that got everyone ready. And then when we had that job on Sunday, the very same day this arriving fire cracked off, we had 28 trucks on that job. I think 8 items of heavy plant, 2 aircraft, an enormous number of group captains doing different jobs. And that fire was wrapped up to 374 hectares on that same day. So Ivan fire took a run. So as Ian Gosper said before, absolutely miraculous job. And it was only down to the preparation that was done beforehand, the readiness level of the brigades, and the response in activation by everyone involved. It was absolutely fabulous. So we've now got this strike team thing that David concocted. He said in the control centre, what else can we do? This is on the Saturday. We've got everything done. We've told everybody what's going on. What else can we do if we do get a fire? Because David and the team, because I wasn't here, I was fishing at Sussex Inlet at the time. It's horrible, horrible. David said, if we do get a fire, what else can we do? We've got to be prepared for the worst. What else can we do? So he and the team that he had there said, look, we want to be able to send, and the plan had always been from the Thursday onwards, once we knew it was going to be bad, and then on the Friday we got the advice of the preemptive Section 44 declaration. We knew that every fire we were going to send 25 trucks to every fire, no matter what. How are we going to do that if we get a second fire or a third fire or a fourth fire? We can do it for one easy. Got 174 fire trucks in Canobolas zone. The confidence level on Saturday was that high that David and the team believed that if they had to, all 174 fire trucks on that day could have rolled out the door, which is unprecedented. So what they did was they hatched a bit of a plan, got Jeff working on the maps, and we came up with this. Different colours, there's 4 or 5 brigades in each group. And spoke to all the captains and said, if we call on you, we want 1 truck from your brigade. What typically happens is in a fire area, the fire's here, we suck all the brigades in and we denude the local community, the local area of firefighting resources, and then we have to keep stepping up. So what we want to do here is 1 truck from each brigade, put them on the road with a deputy group captain or similar, send them off to the job, and then we can start arriving in numbers. And we've got 5 trucks in each strike team, so we need 5 strike teams for every fire. And the plan was, when the Avondale fire kicked off, 28 trucks were there within a very quick amount of time, plus the plant. And then the button was pushed on this to get the next 25. So it's another 5 strike teams. And so that button was pushed. Those brigades were on standby. They were ready to go if required, either for that fire or for some other fire. It's never been done in Canobolas before, and it was done on that weekend. So because it was done and it worked, and it seems like quite logical, you know, it's so logical we haven't done it before. It's now part of our operational response plan. I say that quite flippantly, that it's so logical that we haven't done it before. It's just like responding fires based on the fire danger index of the day. You know, it's logical, but nobody does it until now. All right, thanks, Ash. So just the incidents this year. So that hopefully that sets a scene for you about, you know, our preparation. We started early. We had new staff. We tried to indoctrinate those new staff into the culture of the organisation, train them as best as we could into the operational facets of what we do here so that they can better support you into the future. And then all the other preparation that we've done through our planning process to try and make sure it all works. So these are the results, 2016. If we have, normally our fire season is about 300, 350 incidents per year. across our 78 brigades. This year, 498. What I haven't done is the breakdown in the months. January and February were just off the scale. I wish I'd have done that now just to show you. So 498. Of those 498, 182 were bush and grass fires. So think about what else we're doing, which Phil Donato spoke about before. You know, it's car accidents, vehicle fires, search and rescue assistance, structure fires are not counted in bush and grass fires. All those additional things that we do as volunteer local community members are all captured in that 498. So 182 bush and grass fires. Of those 182, we burnt 1,161 hectares, which pleases our superintendent, Mr. Hoadley. Because what we've got to do in Canobolas zone is we've got to burn 7 times more area in hazard reduction than we do have burnt in wildfire. That's our target every year. So we're looking at something around about 9,000 hectares per year in hazard reduction. So we've burned 1,161 hectares. Our largest fire was the Avondale fire at Cumnock. On that catastrophic day, 359 hectares. The number of fires that are greater than 10 hectares, and we know that because we're duty bound to map those fires, 15. 15 fires greater than 10 hectares. And greater than 100 hectares, 2. The other one, besides Avondale, was the Balabula Way at Mandurama. And that was on the Thursday after the catastrophic weekend. That one actually recorded we put out an emergency warning on that particular day. We had a very new crew in here on that day. You know, all of our staff, our newer staff, were the staff in the Fire Control Centre that day. David, I think, was on a stand-down day that day. I was at the Cairns Flat Fire in Mudgee on that day. Did want to go fishing, but... and I was looking at Mudgee Fire Control Centre, and we've got all the wonderful screens at that centre, similar to the ones in the Canobolas Operations Centre, and I could see the information that was coming in that centre from this Mandurama fire. And then I could see the emergency warning. Did I worry about it? Did I panic about it? I didn't, because I knew that the team we had here had been prepared and would have been successful, and they were. With the ground crews we had on the ground that day at the Balabula fire, it was nothing short of sensational. They had 2 goes at it. They had a bit of a wind change in the middle, which was forecast, but it came somewhat early. It tested the crews on the ground, but they got around that fire. So they're the only 2 jobs that we had over 100 hectares in such dire conditions, particularly during January and February. So to me, that paints a picture of success. The planning, the processes that we've got in place, the responsive nature of our brigades, the capability of our people to do the job that we ask them to do is absolutely first class. So job well done. Thank you very much. So all I've got left really is a couple of photos, just of each of the fires. This, and some of you would have been at some of those fires, 25th of December, an important day. And this was just after lunch, probably not even through your lunch for those who were there. George Russell Drive, so between Canoundra and Woodstock. Can't remember the size of that. I think it was about 100 acres or so. 58 hectares. Yeah. So it wasn't a big job, but because it was on Christmas Day, we wanted to get it out. Our motto is, one of our many mottos, we have a home for dinner model. What we want to do is get in, get the job done, get everyone home. And particularly on Christmas Day, you don't want to be flogging out there for too long. So lots of resources, get the fire out, let's get home. All these photos that I've got, incidentally, for the next 5 or 6 shots are all taken from the air. And to me, that paints a bit of a picture that we provide, or we look to provide where we can, the best air support we can to our volunteers on the ground. So the next one, Kerrs Creek Road. This happened pretty early, so 14th of January. We always thought we'd be good until Christmas. So just go back one slide. You can actually see a tinge of green there. So as Ian Gosper said earlier, we had that wet winter. It was extremely wet winter, and that gave way to a heap of growth, and there was green in that one. But come January, this was Kerrs Creek Road, just off Burrendong Way. Started on the side of the road, jumped the road, and burned into paddocks on the other side. Now that fire was wrapped up pretty quickly because whilst we didn't send 25 trucks to it, we sent 2 aircrafts, and we sent some heavy plant, and we sent probably about 9 trucks there, John, something like that. The next one, Staircase Road. Not actually a fire in our district. No smoke in that one. That was well after the job. Is that your picture, Harold? So this is Staircase Road fire, which happened in Mid-Lachlan Valley team's area. Dan, Cam, Robin. That fire started in extreme conditions. It was started by around the Cookamidja area, if people know it. Started by a train, and the topography straight off the railway line is probably 60 degrees slope, just up like that, and that's where the fire went, straight up to the top of the ridge, and then it just pushed by I think we had something like about a 55 km/h wind on that day, and just pushed it enormously. And all the crews that responded from Parks and Forbes districts, and the crews that responded from the Manildra area and Yagowra area, all came together to keep that fire in that ridge country. Didn't get out, didn't destroy any property. So whilst it was a hard-fought battle, particularly, the heavy plant done a marvellous job. We ended up using 2 of our local heavy plant contractors with dozers there, and they worked all night, and with the local brigades kept it in that line. It could have been a very, very nasty fire. We were quite concerned because it was only some 3 kilometres from the southern end of the Goobang National Park. Whenever anyone mentions Goobang to us, particularly to David and I, we get nervous. Don't like Goobang. So, thanks, Ash. This is, I haven't got a date on that. How come I haven't got a date on that, Ash? That's around about mid-January. That's the Mount Macdonald Road fire at Darby's Falls. Again, air support and a lot of tankers there. Well, as many tankers we could actually get. On that particular fire, it started from a fellow with using a angle grinder, although he says he wasn't using an angle grinder. It was spotted from one of our spotter aircraft that was just doing a reconnaissance flight, had lightning the night before. It was Tom McDevitt, actually. He spotted the smoke, called it in, and we got crews to there. The fire was at the bottom of the hill down near the assets there, but unfortunately got up into that rocky slope. Funny thing about pictures is that it really, everything looks flat. I can assure you that hill's not flat, is it, Luke? Luke and his crew from Wagula walked up and down that hill a few times, and all on the left-hand side of that hill, you may be able to see the bit of a pink line up near the top. So we had to use retardant from the aircraft there to actually put a line in on the western side of that, so we didn't have to burn the whole hill. And we did have plans to burn that whole hill. But that local brigade there at Darby's Falls had to patrol that. Whilst that fire was pretty much contained that night, the local brigades, Mount Macdonald and Darby's Falls particularly, and Wagula with assistance, patrolled that fire for the next week and a half. So it was a long haul job, mainly because of the terrain that was in, the rocks, the timber. But on that day, could have been much, much worse. We could have had much bigger area. So again, rapid response, heavy weight of attack, timely arrival. We were able to get on top of it pretty quick. Thanks, mate. Gullandar Road fire. This is up in the Washpen area, just to the northwest of Yeovil, east of the Goobang. Again, a lightning strike. Very small fire. Didn't really burn a great deal, but it was on a bad enough day after lightning activity. We had multiple fires on that day, and that one was wrapped up with the use of aircraft. We had a bulldozer and a grader there as well. In fact, I think 2 graders there from Cabong Council, and again, that probably took another 4 days to wrap that fire up, but it was contained by the end of that first shift, so that was good. This fire's the 6th of February, so a couple of days later, again, lightning strikes, Canobolas National Park. By this stage, 6th of February, we're starting to get wind of this really bad weather coming on the 11th and 12th. So at the end of this week, we're going to get some bad weather, and then we get this particular fire. This photo is taken from, again, a spotter aircraft activated by the RFS after lightning activity to try and find, any signs of fire. They spotted this one. It's in the middle of the Canobolas Range, in the middle of the National Park at Cowra. There's a lot of fire trails in the Canobolas Range. This fire was nowhere near any of those fire trails. And fortunately, we worked with our National Parks colleagues on that one. What we actually did on that afternoon was we activated 2 aircraft, one from Forbes, one from Cowra, and we put, I think, a total of about 8 loads of retardant around that fire and boxed it in, so it couldn't go anywhere. And then National Parks put crews on foot. They couldn't actually get to the fire with any machinery. They did have plans to push a track into that fire and put a good containment line around it, but once they got into it with the good work that the aircraft had done, they were able to rake around that fire. Only burnt something like about 3 hectares, I think, all up. But again, if we hadn't been onto it quick, had the right sort of response at the right time, that would have been a fire that we would have carried into that bad weekend. Had enormous potential for us, and we rode, hats off to Steve Woodall, the senior ranger from National Park, because we rode him like a devil to make sure that he had crews on that every day, and they did. They did a great job. So by that weekend, they even still had crews on it on that catastrophic weekend, just patrolling. But they winched people in every day to that job, and it was fabulous. Could have been extremely bad. The next one is the Gumbel Road fire at Cumnock. This is about the time that Cumnock, Yeovil and Molong brigades started to really get a bit of a flogging. They, it seemed like every day those brigades were going out to a fire somewhere. The problem with that is that the same people going out day after day after day. It's the same 6 or 7 going out on that same truck every day, and they're not getting any work done on their farms. They're not doing anything. This fire started from a fencing machine. Well, wire spooler started this fire. Strangely enough, it was the strangest thing that the local guys said they'd never seen anything like it before. Some open country, and actually this is really at the start. Again, this photo is from a spotter aircraft that was up doing a bit of a job looking for fires after lightning. And we sent a fixed-wing bomber to it, we sent heavy plant to it, and again, we sent a lot of tankers to it. And it took the crews probably the best part of a week, Norm, on that job to safely say that fire was out. That first shift and Northwest crew, Northwest Orange, and a few other Tablelands brigades went up there that night, but certainly Northwest stayed there all night. While sometimes that's not good for fatigue management, in these cases, we're quite proud of the fact that our firefighters stay with our fires all night, if they need to. So that fire eventually burnt quite a large area, but was wrapped up, again, pretty much by the next morning it was wrapped up, but really took a week to put out. So 6th of February, then we go to the 12th of February, and this is the bad day. So that Avondale fire. So this is taken at 1658, this particular image. So we're just on 5 o'clock. Not sure what time it started, David?
10 to 4.
10 to 4. So an hour later, and when I showed this photo at our recent group captains meeting, the group captain, Phil Hunter, said, gee, that doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look like the fire I was at. He actually questioned whether it was the Avondale fire. But an hour later, we had those 28 trucks were there, and they were into it. And we had the 2 aircraft were there, they were into it. And, all those crews did a marvellous job on that day. And, like I say, 359 hectares. So absolutely miraculous to pull it up on that day. Also heard Dubbo, Arana team, had a fire on that same day. They pulled it up to 100. Something's going right if they're doing that. Thanks, mate. Later on, the Balabla Way we mentioned, so even Blaney gets a mention. 6 So that was a bit of a tester, I suppose, for our centre here and for our newer staff being here on their own on that day. And but with the ground crews that we had, the readiness levels that were there, again, a fabulous job. Thanks, mate. This was getting late in February. This is Canobolas Lane, just out of Cargo. Again, a lightning strike. The biggest problem with that one is, and you can almost see that river, the creek there, Canobolas Creek, I think it is. If it had crossed that drainage line, we were in a world of pain because all of our trucks were on the other side. We had brought in Panuara from the east, but they were still sort of making their way to the fire. So it was a bit of a job, and there's no cargo guys here tonight, but that fire could have been a nasty one because the fire that burned into Mount Canobolas in 1985 actually burned up through the Black Rock Range, which is only a K1.5 or so from that location. So it had the potential to be a bad fire. But again, rapid response of the right sort of resources in the right sort of numbers sorted that one out. The Fragar Road fire, again down at Cowra, just on the edge of the Canobolas National Park. This was a fire that took a bit of getting into, and we had some containment lines pretty well close by, just had to touch them up. Again, just making sure that we had the right numbers there at the right time, made the difference there, but that was a difficult little fire to get to. Fire activity was it's pine sort of country, so it arcs up a bit, then it dies down, arcs up a bit, dies down. We had done some hazard reduction immediately to the north only 8 months before, and we were hopeful that if we couldn't contain it, we would stop it at that hazard reduction. West Timby at Yeovil, and again, this is why Yeovil and Cumnock were so busy. There was a few fires up around the Timby location. This one was about just under 100 hectares. It had been burning for a while before anyone actually noticed it. But again, all the local crews from Cumnock, Yeovil, and support from Washpan assisted that day to bring that under control pretty quickly. So again, a good job. Schmidt's Fire, which is out in Bacobra, just east of the Goobang National Park. Again, a lightning strike, burned in some scrubby country. The main resource we had there was heavy plant. We used a bulldozer and a grader on that job, and it's one of the great things that we have these days, availability and access to through the Rural Fire Services Heavy Plant program. And it's something I don't ever want to see relinquish, if you like, or steady off. It's such a support to our fire ground, it's not funny to have that level of support from heavy plant. So that was pretty much, I think, the last fire of the season, was it? Yes. So fire-wise, we've really had a good run, and we've had a good run, and it's not by accident, is I suppose my main point. It's planned, it's preparation, it's readiness, and then you just action the job. If everyone knows what they're doing and knows what the plan is, all we've got to do is do it. I just thought I'd touch on a bit about our radio system that we all know and love, and I know there has been some heartache across our brigade members just with the loss of our radio system because it doesn't belong to us anymore. Where we once called up Firecom and you would be answered by one of your jolly local fire control personnel, these days we go through what's known as centralised dispatch. So that's centralised dispatch centre in Homebush at head office, and whilst it's going to be a challenge for us, and I know it already is, the best thing is on the bad days we take the radio system back, and we proved that over the past summer. Any day where we had very high fire danger or above, particularly in a fire danger index in excess of 38, we would by habit just take the radios back. Because if a fire is going to escalate quickly, we want to be in charge of that as quickly as possible. So centralised dispatch, while it's going to be a challenge for us day in, day out, on the normal sort of activities, you can be rest assured that on the days that matter, we will have communication. So you'll be talking to us and we'll be dealing with those things directly. It is a good system. It does work. There is some ironing out to be done, particularly in clarity of messages, the busyness of the network now. There are now 12 districts on the system. They just brought on Central Coast and Mid Coast, and those two districts are very busy, and it will be a challenge for us all. We've all got a role to play in that, and that is by making sure we tell them what they need to know. And those are basically, just flip to the next photo, mate, just to get me off the screen, really. The main thing they want to know is your call sign, where you're going, if you're responding, how many crew you've got, and what the rank is of your senior officer. So if you can tell FICOM those things in one message, they will leave you alone. But if you just say it's Orange 1 and we're heading out to wherever, they'll come back and ask you how many crew and who's the officer in charge. So it just creates more messaging, and it takes up more time, and then other units can't get on. So if we can say those things straight up, they'll just leave you alone, let you go and do your work. One important thing is that you can be rest assured whenever we get a fire call, the local duty officers, so the duty officer this week is Jeff Selwood. We get a fire call right now. His pager goes off the same time as the brigade does. He contacts centralised dispatch, finds out more information about it. We'll send out a second pager message if need be to provide you that more information, and we turn on the radio and we listen. And if you need support, we are there. So that's the most important thing, I think. All right, I think that's about it from me. So bored you to death. I think it's nearly tea time. So is there any questions? Anything? Good. All right. Thank you.